I made the mistake of being kind in front of a monster. One moment I was calming a lost child in Italian, the next I was being watched by a man whose enemies didn't live long enough to describe his eyes. He said 3 words to his men: find everything about her, and I knew my carefully invisible life was over. That was 6 months ago. 6 months since I knelt on the marble floor of the most expensive restaurant in the city and whispered, "Va bene, piccola," to a crying little girl who'd lost her mother. 6 months since I looked up and saw him standing there, absolutely still in a sea of chaos, staring at me like I was something he'd been searching for his entire life. 6 months since I stopped being invisible. His name is Dante Salvator, though most people are too afraid to say it out loud. They call him other things. Il Lupo, the wolf. The man who runs this city from the shadows, who signs death warrants with the same hand that now traces the curve of my spine in the dark. I know what you're thinking. I know how this sounds. A good woman would have run. A smart woman would have disappeared the moment she realized what he was. But here's what they don't tell you about monsters. Sometimes they look at you like you're the only human thing they've ever wanted to keep. Sometimes their darkness is the first place you've ever felt safe. I'm not going to tell you this is a love story. I'm not going to promise you it ends well. What I will tell you is the truth, about the child who spoke my language, about the man who heard it, about the life I was hiding, and the one he built for me in blood and silk and whispered Italian in the dark. But to understand how I got here, you need to know where I started. I was a ghost in the machine of the city. That's what 10 years of hiding looks like, learning to take up less space, to keep your head down, to never be interesting enough to remember. My apartment was a 4th-floor walk-up in a neighborhood where nobody asked questions. The stairs smelled like decades of cooking, garlic, tomato, the specific scent of working-class survival. I liked it. It reminded me of before when I still had a name that meant something. Now I was just Emma. Emma Ross, if anyone asked, which they rarely did. I worked 3 jobs, morning shift at a bakery in Little Italy, afternoons cleaning offices in the financial district, weekends waitressing at whatever restaurant needed extra hands. The work was invisible, the pay was cash, and that was exactly the point. I was good at invisible. I'd had to be. The bakery was my favorite. Old Mrs. Chen didn't care that my references were thin or that I always flinched when men spoke too loudly. She just handed me an apron and pointed to the dough. "You have baker's hands," she'd said. "I can always tell." What she couldn't tell was that I'd learned to bake in another country, in another language, in a life I'd buried so deep I sometimes forgot it had been real. I kept one thing from before, just one. A silver medal of Santa Lucia, patron saint of the blind, hanging on a chain I never took off. My grandmother had pressed it into my palm the night I ran, her hands shaking, her voice urgent. "She will help you see the path when everything is dark." I touched it now, the metal warm from my skin, and kneaded the dough harder. I didn't know that in 3 hours, the path would find me instead. The restaurant was called Celestina's, a place where the waitstaff wore black, and the wine list was longer than most novels. I'd been called in last minute to cover someone's shift. Good money, easy work, the kind of invisible service where you're just hands delivering plates. I should have known better. Nothing in my life had ever been easy. The little girl appeared around 7:30, wandering between tables with the wide-eyed panic of a child who's just realized she's lost. She couldn't have been more than 4, dark curls bouncing, her tiny hands clutched in front of her chest. She was trying not to cry, failing. I didn't think. That was my first mistake. I knelt down, putting myself at her level, and the Italian came out like breathing. "Ehai, piccola, va bene, non pianger." "Hey, little one, it's okay. Don't cry." Her head snapped up, recognition flooding her tear-stained face. She launched into rapid Italian, the words tumbling over each other. She couldn't find her mama. She was scared. There were too many people. SHH, I soothed, still in Italian, brushing her hair back. "Troviamo la tua mamma insieme, sai? We'll find your mama together, yes." That's when I felt it. The room had gone quiet. Not silent, the music still played, conversation still murmured, but something had shifted. The air had changed pressure. I looked up. He was standing 15 feet away, absolutely motionless in the middle of controlled chaos. A man in a charcoal suit that probably cost more than I made in 6 months, dark hair swept back, a face that would have been beautiful if it wasn't so terrifying. But it was his eyes that stopped my heart. Dark, focused, predatory, looking at me like I was the only thing in the room, like he could see straight through the 10 years of hiding, past the American accent and the fake name and the careful invisibility. Like he knew exactly what I was. Behind him, 2 men in similar suits had gone rigid, hands moving toward their jackets. The little girl tugged my sleeve, oblivious. Signorina. I couldn't look away from him, couldn't breathe, couldn't move. He smiled. It was worse than if he'd frowned. Then he turned his head just slightly and spoke 2 words to the man on his left. I was too far away to hear them, but I could read lips. I'd had to learn. Find her. I found the girl's mother, a frantic woman in diamonds who barely looked at me, and disappeared into the kitchen. My hands were shaking so hard I had to grip the edge of the steel counter. Stupid, so incredibly stupid. 10 years of hiding, and I'd blown it over a crying child. Emma, the manager's voice. Table 12 wants to thank you personally. My blood went cold. I'm sure that's not. He insisted. Of course he did. Table 12 was in the corner, the best seat in the house, the one reserved for people who don't wait for reservations. He sat alone now, the little girl and her mother gone, a glass of red wine in front of him that he wasn't drinking. He was watching me approach, waiting. I stopped at the edge of his table, hands clasped to hide their shaking, and forced my voice level. Sir, I'm glad the child. Sit. Not a request. I'm working. Sit. His voice was quiet, controlled. Somehow that made it more terrifying. Please. I sat. What else could I do? Up close he was worse. Beautiful and terrible, like looking at a knife. His hands rested on the table, relaxed, but I could see the scars across his knuckles. Old violence, worn comfortable. You speak Italian, he said. I studied it, in school. His smile said he knew I was lying. Your accent is Tuscan, specifically Lucca region. You learned it at home, not in a classroom. My throat closed. What's your name? Emma Ross. Your real name. That is my. Bella. His voice was soft, almost gentle. It made my skin crawl. I'm going to ask you questions. You're going to lie. I'm going to know you're lying. We can do this the easy way, where you eventually tell me the truth and we have a pleasant conversation, or the hard way. He leaned forward just slightly. I don't recommend the hard way. I don't know what you want from me. The truth. His eyes never left mine. Starting with why a woman who speaks perfect Tuscan Italian is working under a name that doesn't exist in any database before 10 years ago. My heart was hammering so hard I could hear it in my ears. Who sent you? He asked. No one sent me. Who are you hiding from? The question hit like a fist, because he knew. He already knew I was hiding. The only question was from whom. I'm no one, I whispered. No. He reached across the table. I flinched, and his hand stopped hovering, not touching, waiting. You are very much someone. The question is who. The way he said, who are you hiding from, threw me back. Suddenly I was 17, standing in my grandmother's kitchen in Lucca, listening to my father scream into his phone in the next room. They'd found the ledgers, the ones he'd been keeping, documenting every payment, every deal, every name. My father, the accountant who'd thought he could expose the Camorra and live. My mother was already dead by then. A car accident, they'd said. Everyone knew better. You have to go, Nana had said, pressing the metal into my palm, her ancient hands surprisingly strong. Tonight, now, to America, your cousin will. My father's screaming had stopped. That was worse. The silence that followed taught me everything I needed to know about what happens to people who keep records, who think the truth matters more than survival, who believe justice is stronger than blood. I'd run. God help me. I'd run while my father was still warm, while his blood was still spreading across the tile floor he'd walked across every morning for 40 years. I'd run, and I'd kept running for 10 years. I blinked, the memory released, and I was back at table 12, where a different kind of monster was waiting for an answer. My father kept the wrong records, I heard myself say, and the Camorra killed him for it. His expression didn't change, but something behind his eyes shifted. What was his name? Does it matter? He's dead. They're all dead. I'm the only one left. 10 years of silence broke, open like a dam. I was 17, I said, and my voice didn't shake. That surprised me. I came home from school and found my father bleeding out on the kitchen floor because he thought documentation mattered. Because he thought someone would care that he had proof of where the money went, who paid whom, which politicians were bought. He thought the truth would protect him. I laughed. It sounded broken even to my ears. The truth got him killed. It got my mother killed. It would have got me killed if my grandmother hadn't shoved me on a plane with a fake passport and a new name. I leaned forward, and I didn't care anymore that he was dangerous. So yes, I'm hiding. Yes, I'm lying. Yes, Emma Ross is fake. And I will keep lying to every person who asks because the alternative is ending up like my father, dead on a floor while the people he tried to expose eat dinner at restaurants like this one. He was absolutely still, listening with an intensity that made me feel like every word was being cataloged, filed, remembered. I'm nobody, I finished. I clean offices and bake bread and serve wine to people who don't see me. That's all I am. That's all I want to be. So whatever you think I am, whatever you're looking for, you're wrong. The silence stretched. Then he did something I didn't expect. He picked up his wine glass, drank, and set it down with careful precision. The Camorra are animals, he said quietly. We are not them. We. Oh God. You're. Cosa Nostra, he said. Different family, different rules, better rules. His eyes locked on mine. And if your father kept records of Camorra business, Piccola, you're not safe. You were never safe, you've just been lucky. The Camorra have long memories, Dante said, and the way he said Camorra, like the word tasted foul, told me everything about the war between families. If they knew Giuseppe Ferrara's daughter was alive in this city. My whole body went cold. How do you know my father's name? I know everything that happens in this city. He said it simply, like commenting on the weather. Including the fact that Carlo Rossi, Camorra captain, the man who probably ordered your father's death, arrived in New York 2 days ago. The room tilted. You're lying. I don't lie about threats. He pulled out his phone, turned it toward me. A photograph, surveillance, grainy but clear. A man in his 60s, gray hair, expensive suit, getting into a car outside a Brighton Beach restaurant. I knew that face. It was burned into my nightmares. Why is he here? My voice was barely a whisper. Business, a new partnership my people have been trying to prevent. His jaw tightened. But if he sees you, if he realizes who you are. He won't. I don't look like I did. I'm careful. You spoke Italian in a restaurant full of connected people to comfort a child. His voice was gentle, devastating. You were kind, and kindness makes you visible. My hands were shaking again. I pressed them against my thighs. I can protect you, he said. I don't need. Yes, you do. Not arrogant, fact. Rossi doesn't forgive, he doesn't forget. And if he's here, he's looking for something. The question is whether he's looking for you. The words hung between us. Then, quieter, I lost someone to the Camorra a long time ago. His fingers traced the rim of his wine glass, a gesture that looked almost vulnerable. My sister. She was 14. Wrong place, wrong time, caught in crossfire meant for my father. I looked up. His face was controlled, but his eyes. There was an ocean of grief in those eyes. So when I say I understand what it is to run, to hide, to wake up every day afraid they'll find you, I understand, Bella, more than you know. Something in my chest cracked. This was a mistake. Seeing him as human was a mistake, but I couldn't look away. Why do you care what happens to me? His smile was small, sad, and somehow the most honest thing I'd ever seen. Because you spoke to a crying child in your mother tongue without thinking about the cost. Because you're kind in a world that punishes kindness. He paused. Because I've been looking for something real in this city for 10 years, and you're the first real thing I've found. He drove me home. I didn't argue. What was the point? His car was exactly what I expected. Black, expensive, windows tinted so dark I couldn't see out. The city passed like a film, lights streaking, the world outside reduced to colors and shapes. This doesn't mean I trust you, I said to the silence. I know. I've survived 10 years on my own. I know that too. So why? Because surviving isn't living, Bella. His hands were steady on the wheel, scarred knuckles relaxed. And you've been doing the first while pretending it's the second. The words hit harder than they should have. We pulled up outside my building. He looked at the cracked facade, the graffiti, the broken streetlight, and something in his expression tightened. You live here. It's safe. It's a cage you built yourself. He turned to face me. Let me offer you something better. I don't want your money. Protection, information, the ability to sleep without checking the locks 3 times. His eyes held mine. The chance to speak your own language without fear. My throat was tight. And what do you want in return? Dinner, tomorrow night. Somewhere you choose, somewhere you feel safe. He smiled slightly. I'll even let you run if you want to, though we both know you won't. I should have said no. Should have walked away, disappeared again, rebuilt my invisible life somewhere else. But he was right. I was so tired of running. One dinner, I heard myself say. One dinner, he agreed. I opened the door, stepped out into the cool night air. Bella. I turned back. You're not alone anymore, he said quietly, even if you want to be. The door closed. The car drove away. And I stood on the sidewalk, touching my grandmother's metal, and wondered if I'd just made the biggest mistake of my life. Or the first honest choice. I need to know, have you ever met someone who saw straight through every wall you'd built? Who looked at you like you were the only real thing in a city of ghosts? Tell me in the comments, because that's exactly what happened next. I wore the only dress I owned that wasn't for work, simple, dark blue, nothing special. He arrived exactly on time, and the look in his eyes when he saw me made me feel like I was wearing diamonds. We went to a small trattoria in the village, the kind of place with checked tablecloths and wine in unmarked bottles. He'd chosen it specifically, I realized. Somewhere I would feel safe, somewhere without his world pressing in. Tell me something true, he said over pasta that tasted like home. I miss baking, I said. Real baking. The bread my grandmother taught me, the focaccia with rosemary, the torta della nonna. I trailed off. Stupid. Not stupid. His voice was gentle. What else? I miss speaking Italian. I stopped. Home, he finished. I don't have a home anymore. You could. He reached across the table, and this time I didn't flinch when his hand covered mine. I have estates, properties, kitchens the size of your entire apartment. You could bake anything you wanted. In exchange for what? Your company, your conversation, he paused. You. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me look. The message was a photograph. Mrs. Chen, my boss at the bakery, standing outside her shop. Alone. Late evening, the street empty. Below it, text in Italian. We know where you are, little Ferrara. Time to come home. The phone slipped from my hands. Dante had it before it hit the table, his eyes scanning the message, his whole body going absolutely still in that way that meant violence was about to follow. When did this come? Just now. How did they? You were seen at Celestina's. Someone recognized you, sold the information. His jaw was granite. Rossi moves fast. Mrs. Chen. Is bait. He was already standing, phone to his ear, rapid Italian too fast for me to follow. Then to me, come now. I can't just leave her. If you go to her, they take you both. If you come with me, I can get her out. His hand extended. But I need you to trust me. Right now, no questions. Everything in me screamed to run, to grab Mrs. Chen myself, to handle this alone the way I'd handled everything for 10 years. But Dante was right. Against the Kimura alone, I had no chance. I took his hand. His fingers closed around mine like a promise. "Don't let go," he said. I didn't. The call came as we reached his car. Dante listened, his face carved from stone, then spoke 3 words in Italian that I didn't catch. He hung up. "She's safe. My people have her." The relief almost dropped me. "But Rossi knows I'm involved now," he continued, and something in his voice made me look up. "He knows I'm protecting you, which means..." "Which means what?" He was quiet for a long moment, city lights playing across his face. "There's a treaty between Cosa Nostra and the Camorra in the city. Fragile, generations of negotiation, blood, compromise." His eyes met mine. "Protecting you breaks it. Harboring a fugitive they want, it's an act of war." "Oh, God." "Then don't," I said immediately. "I'll go, I'll disappear again." "No." "Dante, you can't start a war over." "You..." His hands framed my face, and the gentleness was devastating. "I can't start a war over you. That's what you were going to say, like you're not worth it." "I'm not." "You are." His thumb traced my cheekbone. "And I'm tired, Bella. So tired of pretending the peace matters more than having one real thing in this world. One honest thing. One person who speaks to crying children in her mother tongue because kindness is more important than safety." "I'm choosing you," he said quietly. "Over the treaty, over the peace, over everything." I couldn't breathe. "Why?" His smile was small and absolutely certain. "Because you already chose me, the moment you took my hand." "Here's my question, and I really want your answer. When someone sees the real you, the parts you've hidden from everyone, and they don't run, is that love? Or is that just 2 broken people recognizing each other? Tell me." "They came for us 3 days later." Rossi didn't send soldiers. He came himself to the neutral ground, an old church in Brooklyn where families had met for generations to negotiate, to bargain, to avoid bloodshed. Dante brought me. I was the point, after all, the thing they were fighting over. I'd never felt more like an object, and more like a person who mattered. The church was beautiful in the way old things are, marble and gold and centuries of prayers soaked into stone. Rossi stood at the altar, flanked by 4 men. Dante and I stood at the entrance, his hand at the small of my back. "Giuseppe Ferrara's daughter," Rossi said in Italian, looking at me like I was a curiosity, a ghost made flesh. "I thought you were dead." "I ran." "And took your father's records with you." I blinked. "What records? I was 17, I didn't take anything." "Liar," his voice cracked like a whip. "Your father copied everything. Payments, names, accounts, 20 years of documentation. It wasn't in the house, his office, anywhere." He stepped closer. "So where is it, little girl? What did you do with the evidence?" I don't have anything." My voice shook. I didn't even know he'd been keeping records until he was all ready. "She doesn't have them," Dante said. His voice was calm, absolute. "If she did, she would have used them already, sold them, bargained with them." "Or she's been waiting," Rossi countered. "Waiting for the right moment, the right price." "I don't have them," the words burst out. "I watched my father die for those records, and I never saw them, never wanted them, never." My voice broke. Rossi studied me. Then slowly he smiled. "I believe you." "Which means they're still out there," he continued. "Hidden, waiting, and you, girl, you're the key to finding them. Your father would have told you something, left you something, you just don't remember." His eyes were hungry. "Come with me, voluntarily. Help me find what your father hid, and I'll let you live." "No," Dante said. "Then I'll kill everyone you care for until she agrees, starting with the old Chinese woman." Dante's hand tightened on my back. The choice was impossible. Go with Rossi and die slowly. Stay with Dante and watch everyone around me burn. Unless... "I know where they are," I heard myself say. Both men's heads snapped toward me. I know where my father hid the records. It was a lie. I had no idea where my father's records were. I didn't even know for certain they existed. But I knew one thing. My grandmother had given me something the night I ran. Not just the medal, something else. A key. Small, brass, old-fashioned. She'd pressed it into my hand along with the medal, her eyes urgent. "For when you can finally go home," she'd whispered. I'd kept it for 10 years, never understanding what it opened. Now, standing in that church between two men who represented everything that had destroyed my family, I understood. "There's a bank," I said, the lie becoming truth as I spoke it. "In Lucca, Banco di Lucca on Via Falungo. My grandmother had a safety deposit box. She gave me the key before I left." Rossi's eyes gleamed. "And you never checked it?" "I've been hiding for 10 years. Walking into a bank in Italy, using my real name, it would have been suicide." "Smart girl," he considered. "Then we go together, you, me, and enough men to ensure you don't try anything foolish." "She's not going anywhere with you," Dante said, and there was murder in his voice. "Then she's going nowhere at all, except a grave." The gun appeared in Rossi's hand like magic. Everything happened at once. Dante moved, fast, faster than I'd have thought possible, putting himself between me and the weapon. Rossi fired. The sound was deafening in the church, echoing off marble and gold and God. Dante grunted, stumbled. Red bloomed across his white shirt, spreading like spilled wine. "No," I caught him as he fell, his weight dragging us both down. "No, no, no." His men were moving, guns out, Rossi's men responding. The church erupted into chaos. But all I could see was Dante's blood on my hands. "You're okay," I was saying, pressing my palms against the wound in his shoulder. "You're okay, stay with me, please." His hand covered mine, warm, steady. "The key," he said, voice rough with pain. "Is it real?" "I don't know, I think so, maybe." He smiled, actually smiled. "Good enough." Then he turned his head, shouted something in Italian. His men lowered their weapons. "We have a deal," Dante said to Rossi, each word clearly costing him. "She goes to Lucca, gets the records, but I go with her. And if you touch her, the treaty won't matter because I'll burn your entire family to ash." Rossi considered, nodded. "1 week, then we go to Italy." The guns disappeared. Rossi and his men left. And I was alone with Dante, his blood soaking into my dress, his eyes on mine like I was the only thing keeping him conscious. "You took a bullet for me," I whispered. "Of course I did." "Why?" His hand touched my face, leaving a smear of red. "Because you're mine to protect now, and I don't fail at protecting what's mine." I kissed him. I didn't decide to. My body decided. My heart decided. I kissed him there on the floor of that church, tasting salt and copper and fear and something else, something that felt like the first honest thing I'd done in 10 years. When we broke apart, his eyes were dark, intense, alive despite the pain. "Bella," he breathed. "I'm tired of running," I said. "I'm tired of hiding. I'm tired of being alone." "Then stay." "I'm staying." The word felt like a vow. Is it still a choice if your body makes it before your mind catches up? Is surrender weakness, or is it the bravest thing you can do when you've been fighting your whole life? I'm still trying to figure it out. Help me. Dante's people had doctors, the kind who don't ask questions, who work in the dark, who are paid enough to be loyal. The bullet had gone through, clean, lucky. I didn't leave his side while they worked, held his hand while they stitched, felt every flinch like it was happening to me. Afterward, in the safe house, some penthouse apartment with views of the entire city, he slept. Finally, the pain medication dragging him under. I sat in a chair beside his bed and watched him breathe. He looked different asleep, younger. The hardness in his face softened, the violence temporarily dormant. I could see the boy he must have been before his sister died, before his world became blood and territory and treaties written in lives. My hand found his, scarred knuckles, calloused palms. But so careful when they touched me. I don't know how to do this, I whispered to his sleeping form. I don't know how to be someone's to protect. I don't know how to let someone care whether I live or die. His fingers tightened around mine, even in sleep. A promise neither of us had words for yet. We went to Luca 3 days later, when he could walk without grimacing. Private plane, first-class treatment, a world away from the girl who'd fled with a fake passport and terror in her throat. The bank was exactly where I remembered. Old stone, brass fixtures, the kind of place that had survived centuries and would survive centuries more. The safety deposit box was registered to my grandmother, Lucia Ferrara. The key fit perfectly. Inside, a leather journal, pages filled with my father's precise handwriting. Names, dates, account numbers, 20 years of Camorra business, documented with an accountant's obsessive detail. And underneath a letter, addressed to me. Mia cara Emma. If you're reading this, I'm gone. And you survived. Thank God for that. It means your grandmother was as smart as I thought, and you were as brave as I hoped. I knew they would come for me eventually. I accepted that. What I couldn't accept was them getting away with it. These records, use them however you need to. Sell them. Burn them. Give them to people who will do something with the truth. But know this, my death was not your fault. My choices were mine. And I would make them again because some things matter more than survival. Truth matters, justice matters. You matter, live Piccola. Live the life I couldn't give you. Con amor eterno. Papa. I read it 3 times before the tears came. Dante's arms wrapped around me from behind, solid and warm. I'm sorry, he murmured against my hair. He wanted the truth to matter, I said. He died believing it would. Then we'll make it matter. We gave the records to the FBI, anonymously, carefully, with enough protection that the source could never be traced. Within 6 months, indictments came down, arrests, trials. The Camorra family my father had documented, dismantled. Rossi died in prison. Heart attack, they said. We knew better. Justice looks like many things. Sometimes it wears a suit and carries a gavel. Sometimes it's quieter, darker, more final. I didn't ask which of Dante's people had been involved. He didn't offer. Some truths you don't need to speak out loud. What would you have done? Not what you should do, what you would do. If someone took a bullet for you, if the most dangerous person in your world bled for you, if staying meant never being safe again, but leaving meant never feeling anything this real. Tell me. I need to know I'm not the only one who would have stayed. A year later, I stood in a kitchen 3 times the size of my old apartment, kneading dough while Dante read the paper at the Marble Island. The focaccia is almost ready, I said in Italian. Our language now. The one we spoke at home in private when it was just us. Smells like heaven, he replied, not looking up. You say that every time. It's true every time. I smiled, threw a pinch of flour at him. He looked up, eyebrow raised, and the promise in that look made my breath catch. A year, 12 months of learning how to be with someone, how to trust that when he said he'd protect me, he meant it, how to sleep without checking locks, how to speak my real name out loud without fear. 12 months of learning that he was still dangerous, still capable of terrible things, still the man who ran this city from shadows. And choosing him anyway, every single day. He stood, crossed to me, pressed a kiss to my temple. Happy Bella. I leaned into him, felt his heartbeat against my back, steady and sure. Yes, I said, and meant it. Happy. Not safe, not simple, not the life anyone would recommend. But mine, ours real. So that's my story. The story of how I went from a ghost in a city to a woman with a name, from invisible to seen, from running to standing still. I know what he is. I see it every day. The phone calls in the middle of the night, the men who come to our door with problems that need solving, the weight he carries of being responsible for an entire world I only partially understand. He's killed people. He'll kill again. His hands, the ones that hold me so carefully, have ended lives. And I stay. Judge me if you need to. I stopped judging myself a long time ago. There are different kinds of safety in this world, different kinds of love. The clean kind that makes sense on paper, that your friends understand, that looks good in photographs. And then there's the kind that burns everything down and builds something new from the ashes. I chose the second kind. I would choose it again. Some loves are not meant to be safe. Some are meant to be survived, to change you, to make you into someone you never thought you'd become. Dante gave me back my language, my name, my ability to be kind without fear. He took a bullet for me before I'd even admitted I was his. I gave him something too. Something he'd been searching for in a city full of lies and performance, and people playing roles. I gave him something real. We're not a fairy tale. We're complicated and messy and morally gray in ways that would horrify my 17-year-old self. But we're honest, and after 10 years of lying, honesty feels like the most radical thing I've ever done. And now I want to hear your story. Have you ever loved someone dangerous? Have you ever stayed when everyone told you to leave? Have you ever been changed by someone who was never supposed to be part of your life? Tell me in the comments. I read every single one. Your story matters, especially the dark parts, especially the parts you've never told anyone else. If this touched something inside you, please like it. Share it with someone who understands, someone who knows what it is to love in the dark, to choose the complicated path, to find home in unexpected places. Subscribe so you never miss a story, because the truth is, we all have darkness. The question is whether we're brave enough to be honest about it. Until next time. Stay brave, stay dangerous, stay honest.